Welcome. You're tuned into Life is a Sacred Journey. Every week, we bring a new perspective to aging and caregiving. Here is your host, Michelle Pope.
Good morning and welcome to Life is a Sacred Journey, wherever you are. I always like to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the virtual neighborhood of Life is a Sacred Journey. It is my honor and privilege to join you at 8 o'clock on Friday morning here, Pacific Coast time, and I'm not sure wherever you are, what time of day it is that you're joining us on Life is a Sacred Journey. I want to thank Felicia. I always have to thank Felicia, who is the sort of behind the bookcase person that makes sure that we remain relevant as well as just walks with me. Thank you, Felicia. I send you a big hug for all of your support and love throughout these years. It has meant a great deal to me. So thank you so much. So I want to delve in, and sorry, I can't believe I'm having allergies in the middle of the winter, but I am. I am. I want to first of all thank Nancy Redding, who sent me a beautiful card. She is very aware of some changes that are happening for me here in my life. And next week, I will be speaking more specifically about those things. Right now, we have a guest that I want to bring in because Phyllis Leavitt, she's a psychotherapist, but she really moved into helping people because of this idea that we have trauma in our lives that is unhealed and not, it just keeps coming back. I hope you see that little piece of alfalfa hair that I got sticking up. I think it's awfully cute. I tried to get rid of it earlier today. I almost cut it, but I thought, leave it. It might be an antenna to something. Um, so I'm gonna bring Phyllis in while I am introducing her. So let me tell you a little bit about Phyllis. Phyllis is a psychotherapist. She's been on Life is a Sacred Journey in the past, and she has written some incredible books, America in Therapy, as well as it's a new approach to hope and healing for a nation in crisis, which we are in and have been for a very long time. She's also written a book called A Light in the Darkness and Into the Fire. Beautiful, beautiful book. I have finally finished it after her first visit with us, and I really recommend that book to you. On her website, she has a beautiful picture of she and her husband, and they are so madly in love that it just pops out of the screen. But I want to tell you, first of all, that Phyllis has a master's degree in psychology and counseling that she received. She was in private practice for about 30 years, which is amazing, working extensively with abuse and dysfunctional families. We all experience dysfunction in our families. Sometimes we don't even know that the dysfunction is there until we start feeling stuff or having behaviors that manifest, and we go, wait a minute, where is this all coming from? And that she really felt like in the beginning, I love this statement, I'm going to read it because I want you to know more about my friend Phyllis. Phyllis said, when I became a psychotherapist, I never imagined I would one day be entering a political arena. But the more I worked with widespread family dysfunction and its horrifying legacy of pain and violence, the more I realized that the greatest threat to our survival as a country, and I dare say humanity, she says, and as a species, is our declining mental health. And so, Phyllis, it's so good to see you again. I'm really happy that you're here. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I'm so happy to see you. You're one of my favorite people.
And you are one of mine as well. So it's just so good to see you. I'm really thankful that you're here this morning. I have been in major discussion over the last 2 weeks, quite frankly, with people that, not this is not a political conversation, but that people who are unhappy at this moment, they expected a different result. in our recent election. And again, friends, this is not about who was right and who was wrong. It's about how people are manifesting and coming out of this time in our lives. And what I have found is that the unsolved, unspoken to, unresolved grief of the past is just bubbling up, and this is just becoming another layer on the iceberg. And so I did tell people last week, I was just like, get away from your screens, um, spend some time in nature, be compassionate to yourselves, love yourself the way that you possibly, because I know a lot of people out there do, like you and I, we give to the rest of the world, but sometimes we don't give to ourselves. And so I'm so happy that you're here, and your book, America in Therapy, which I have not read yet. I have it, but I haven't read it yet. I want you to tell us about that, but I also want to speak to how when things happen in the greater world, whether it's the war in Ukraine or an election, there's always going to be somebody that feels like they lost or that they're grieving. And then it's on top of all of these layers, economy, all this other stuff. So would you speak to that and the reality of it, and that it is a human condition, I guess? I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's so many things to say, but let me start by saying that we've been living probably since the beginning of humanity, I don't know, in a win-lose paradigm. Somebody conquers, somebody is conquered, somebody has the power, somebody's forced to submit, somebody takes, somebody is taken from. We've been living in this win-lose, conquest over, power over paradigm, I think, from the beginning. And I think that psychologically, what we're realizing now is that at this tipping point in human evolution, that we can't go on that way. We really need a win-win. Because when people, first of all, we have the weapons to so-called win with today that could destroy all of life as we know it, or most of life as we know it, and certainly could destroy human life as we know it, and destroy our ability to get what we need from Mother Earth to sustain life as we know it. So I think we're at this very enormous tipping point in human evolution that I'm not sure everybody's aware of, because we've become so invested in the win-win. And I think most of us grew up in that paradigm that you're supposed to win and you do everything you can to win. And I think we're just starting to realize in the world of psychology that the ways that we overpower each other, the ways that we take from one another, whether it's emotionally and mentally or physically or sexually or in terms of resources or righteousness, however we lord it over one another, our victims become highly symptomatic. And that affects all of us and so my training as someone who worked so much in family systems, and that's really, I think, where modern day psychology is focused. How do we interact with each other, and what's the effect of our behavior on one another? In a healthy family, relatively, given that none of us are perfect, we all bring some baggage to our human relations for
Yeah.
sure. But in a relatively healthy family, we are committed to nonviolence. Nobody says a healthy family beats each other up or slams doors in their faces or locks them out of the house or sexually assaults them. We know these things, and we don't want any of that in our own homes and in our own personal life with the people that we work with or interact with. And yet we condone these things worldwide. We condone them here in America, we condone them around the world. And I think we don't understand that our victims become highly symptomatic. They become depressed, they become anxious, they often feel very helpless because they've been so overpowered. They've lost any belief that they have any efficacy in the world to advocate or protect themselves. And often they become highly aggressive, and like the people who hurt them. And we're really suffering from that in America, and we're suffering from that in the world. And to the extent that we keep on producing victims in our win-lose paradigm and in our power over, and I'm going to force you to do what I believe and what I say and what I want, that we keep creating people who are suffering and become symptomatic. And in the world of psychology, we know that the most symptomatic among us are calling for help for the dysfunction of the family. And so that's really the basis of my book. The most symptomatic among us, whether it's the person who stands by and does nothing while their child is beaten to death, who learn to be helpless, is not a bad person. They learn to be helpless, and they're paralyzing them. They feel paralyzed in the face of danger. Or the person who beats the child, they're all calling for help for the dysfunction in the family of America. And we know what some of those healing elements are. And that's really the reason why I wrote the book, both to sort of diagnose how we got here or help explain how we got here, how these symptoms of dysfunction and abuse mushroom out and ripple out and proliferate themselves, and what are the healing principles. And they're all based in what we consider, I think most of us consider, healthy family relationships, which is love, caring, sharing, cooperation, not only tolerance of diversity, but celebration of diversity. And the big one, there's two more I really want to say, but there's other ones, but these are some of the big ones. A sense that you're wanted, that you belong, and that you're safe. And what makes us safe, among other things, and it's not the only thing, but it's one of the biggest things, is a commitment to nonviolence. So when we disagree, when there's conflict, which we will have because humans never always agree, and that's actually part of what's good about being human, because none of us has the whole answer. So we need lots of perspectives. But a lot of people have been taught to be intolerant of different perspectives, and they want to win the argument, they want to win the fight, and they want to win the war. And I think we have to know that there's no war we can win today. There is no war we can win.
No, yeah. And when you see a little child, I have a granddaughter. I'm not sure if she was born yet when you and I first met, but I think so because she's be a year and a half in December. And she has, nothing but love, surrounded by love, two grandmothers that take care of her, not going to any, just love.
Right.
And yesterday, she loves garbage trucks. She loves to see the garbage truck pick the thing up and dump it.
Right.
She loves that. But it made a sound yesterday that she was not familiar with. And all she did was reach her hand back to grab mine.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is it resonates with that moment in my time with her on yesterday, was that she didn't even look for me. She didn't look around. She didn't do anything. She knew I was there.
Right.
And she knew that she could depend on me. So that hand went back. I held her hand and I said, "It's all right." I said, "I think he just dropped something." And when she was ready to release, she released and continued to look out of the window. And that to me is an example of what you're talking about, that when we give love unconditionally, when even when I say no to her, it's not no in a rough way. And then she actually, I do this, and then she now she does that to me. But it's
Right.
yeah, she does. She's like, "No, Nene." But it is also the way that we are communicating. Her father and mother made it possible for her to learn some sign language because she still doesn't have a whole lot of verbal language. And so that helps her too, to feel like she can express her feelings, she can say thank you, she can say more, so that she's not frustrated that nobody around her understands her needs. And that is what you're saying. It's like I learned the platinum rule in a course of study that I'm taking called Cultivating a Culture of Renewal. Rebecca Simon Peter is the author, and she taught us the platinum rule, not the golden rule. And that was a mind shift for me, because the golden rule says, do unto others as you would have done unto you. Well, that's still very self-focused, self building, whereas the platinum rule says, give people what they need. And you're saying that in a different way, but the same kind of thing is that I may not want what you want, but if you get to know me and have a conversation with me and give me what I need, and I can feel safe with you and honored, it's a whole different relationship, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you could maybe combine the golden and the silver together.
Maybe together, yeah.
And get some other color. But yes, and I love the story that you told about your granddaughter, because it really exemplifies one of the basic premises of what I talk about in so many different, variables in my book. But one of the basic premises is, and I think we really, really need to know this, for ourselves, for our communities, for our country, and for the world. And that is, there's only one thing that makes us safe. It's not weapons, it's not money, it's not defenses, it's safe people. That's
Oh,
what makes us safe. So, and that's what the whole world of psychology is about. How do we become safe for ourselves? How do we not act out or act in on ourselves? How do we take those principles of care, and bring them to all of our relationships? And one of the things that you talked about when you said, sometimes you say no because you have to say no sometimes, and we all have to say no sometimes.
mhm.
But it can be done with love.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be abusive. It doesn't have to be harsh. It doesn't have to be aggressive. It can be a firm boundary. And boundaries are also important to our mental health. People who have no boundaries tend to, be dysfunctional, either toward themselves or others or both. So all of that is part of love. All of it is part of love. And I think we just really need to define what that is, because a lot of people have the association that love is a weakness. Love is
Yeah.
going to make you weak. Love is a sort of a cowardice kind of position to take, which is absolutely not true. Not true at all. Love actually is one of the hardest things to keep manifesting, especially when you're triggered, when you're angry, when you're hurt, when you're scared. Um, so, I take those principles of psychology and I look at the country through that, as well as ourselves, because our country is only as safe as the people in it.
Boom. And that's so evident, as you walk the streets or you're around. I'm a people watcher. You know that about me, and I love people. So I love watching them and seeing them navigate spaces, and as I'm navigating some of the same spaces myself. And I see people that the energy, you can just see it, that their energy is just so like yeah, and even when they're walking, it's like you can tell that it's sort of like, if anybody gets in my way, or driving, if anybody does something wrong, it's this energy that is so, it's massive though. And then it's massive, and it sucks the life out of everything around it. It sucks this ability that you're talking about to love in its pureness. Love in its pureness has no conditions to it.
Yeah, and it may be an advocate for health. It may
Right.
be an advocate, like, when you love your granddaughter, if she's walking up to the stove and you think she's going to burn herself, you make a boundary because you love her, not because she's a bad girl. You
Right.
know, and I
Right.
think that's where we need to know that advocacy can be loving and powerful and firm and cooperative, and it can be for the common good, because I think unconditional love means I don't judge you as a bad person, but it doesn't mean that I can't say what I need, or I can't say no to you if I feel like you've stepped over my boundary or you're about to hurt me.
Right.
And so I think, so the bottom line, and I have a whole chapter on this in my book, It's about repairing relationships, but it's really about the principles of how you be in a relationship that minimizes the need for repair. And
Mhm.
that is that we really focus on our own responsibility in relationship. Part of
Mhm.
that win-lose paradigm that we were talking about earlier is all about blaming others. You did this, you did that, therefore I have a right to take from you. I have a right to see you as inferior. I have a right to wage war on you. I have a right to punish you. I have a right to hate you, whatever. It's all that win-lose paradigm is all about blame. And I
Mhm.
think most of us know in our personal lives that when we're the object of a lot of blame and retaliation, it doesn't make us better people. It doesn't make us better able to get along, or it doesn't inspire us to give other people what they're asking for. It
No.
inspires our defenses. When
Yes.
we feel attacked, we defend. This is the unconscious pattern of human behavior: attack, defend. Then the person who feels like they have to defend generally either attacks back or capitulates and just gives their power over because they feel like there's no hope for them to have a voice or to get what they need. And these are highly destructive dynamics in human behavior. And anybody who's been the recipient of that, and most of us have been in some way at some point in our lives, we know it feels awful.
Yes.
So the bottom line for healing human relations and navigating conflict when it arises and helping minimize it when it's there or even avoid it is to just focus on our own responsibility in a conflict. Who am I being? How am I behaving? Am I open to any other point of view? Does my past conditioning set me up to be highly reactive or highly submissive or fearful? Does my past conditioning have me act out what already happened to me on other people? And again, no blame. This is sort of how we're wired. People,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we're totally wired that way. I mean, I'm going to tell, I have to say, I was in a situation about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago now, 3 weeks ago, and the conversation was going downhill, going downhill. But I take total responsibility because I allowed myself in that situation to never say something that has been brewing in me for a long time. I mean, a really long time. And finally, the button was hit, and it was like blah 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 blah. And I, before I knew it, all of it was out. Well, I still feel what I said, but it was the manner in which
Exactly.
it came out that I regret. But it is interesting that even I, who have done a lot of work, um, therapy, all of that, find myself in those situations sometimes. And it was because of the very thing that you say. It was a power dynamic between myself and the other persons, because it was more than one person. And they had the power. And because they have had the power and I have given them the power, I
Exactly.
have to be honest. I have
Exactly.
given them the power. The minute that I felt like that was being abused, un- unknowingly, even to them, that I had given them the power. But the fact that I had given it to them and they abused it is what
Yes.
made me angry, not what they were saying. Does that make sense?
Totally, totally. And I think those power dynamics actually infuse most relationships without actually being addressed or even conscious. You know,
Yes.
we kind of tend to play out the role that we learned as children. If you learn to be submissive, you tend to be submissive later in life. If you learn to be aggressive to get your way, you tend to be aggressive. If you learn to be passive aggressive, you learn that. If you learn to be avoidant, we act these things out. And sometimes we act out all those different things with different people in different relationships, right? Um, the point is not that we're bad or wrong. The point is, do I actually have a choice? Am I just on automatic pilot with you? Maybe I actually really do want to avoid a confrontation with you. Maybe you're not somebody I want to work it out with, or I'm never going to see you again, or whatever. Maybe I don't want to work it out with you. And avoidance is actually a healthy thing to do. But in an intimate relationship where it's ongoing, probably continuing to be avoidant of conflict is going to produce something like what you said, like a buildup of resentment and then an explosion
Yeah.
or acting out on oneself. So the healing process is really, do I have a choice? In any given situation, can I advocate for myself? Or do I just really want to listen to you deeply and hear where you're coming from, or both? Because what we don't learn is that conflict can actually be constructive. It can bring people closer. It can deepen intimacy. It can deepen compassion. If we really focus on our own part in it, being responsible, restraining ourselves from our most reactive responses, really reflecting on who we are and who we're being. Am I rolling my eyes at you? Am I looking the other way when you're trying to make contact with me? Is there something that I could do differently that would actually help this conflict come to a resolution more easily and more quickly? Do I have to make amends to you? We all want people to make amends to us. We all want people to admit they're wrong and be sorry. And, there's nothing wrong with that. That's very appropriate. But are we willing to be those people? Can I look at myself and say, I shouldn't have said that way to you. I was really yelling, or my tone of voice was really harsh, or I did roll my eyes when I disagreed with you. Can I make amends? Can I be the person that I want you to be for me? Because all of those things that I just outlined are what make it possible to reach a resolution with you. The more we understand where each other's coming from, the more we have empathy for each other's pain underneath their anger or their distancing or their fear or whatever, the more we can reconnect. And that's the goal. And that's what we don't see in society. The goal is still to win, not really factor in the impact that we're having on the people that we beat.
Right. And folks, I'm glad you have the book back there. America in Therapy we're going into the holiday season, and then I always I buy books, I give books away. And so this is a great book to give to someone in your family, a good friend. Buy an extra copy, put it in your trunk, and when you're coming out of a meeting or something, to refer back to. But America in Therapy, and again, I just know Phyllis. I know Phyllis's heart, and and you've just learned a little bit more about her work and what she's doing in the community around us. But I know that this book, like I said, I haven't opened mine yet, but I have it, and I'm looking forward to reviewing it and getting it out. And if you have someone in your life that is raising children, because this is where I think we can begin to shift, is give it to them as a gift so that they can begin to understand that we have generational trauma that goes from generation to generation to generation, and it is in our DNA. We carry it with us. We don't even know where it came from some of the time. But America in Therapy by my friend Phyllis Leavitt will help you to explore the possibilities by asking those vital questions that she just recited, because we do need to do that from time to time. We need to ask those questions, and then the calm of our own home, in the calm of our own heart, and then silence the voices of the people around us that we think are our judges, and then be in a place. Phyllis, this is one last question I want to ask you. How do you have those courageous conversations, though, with people who have an opposing spot from you? How do you get into that space where you can do that, and, like you say, bring that calm, but to bring that intentionality that I want to love you regardless of that?
Well, one thing that I would say is love is the safe container in which you can have those conversations. And even if you don't feel like you love that person, you can still be loving as the safe container. And loving means I want the best. I want the best for you. I want the best for this relationship. I want the best for the outcome of whatever the conflict is. But let me just say this, because I think it's really important. Waging war is easy. We all know how to react and fly off the handle and be righteous and be right and be, not open to any other point of view because we're just so right and you're so wrong. We
Yep.
know how to do that. That's automatic pilot. It doesn't really take anything to do that, and it takes everything from us. Waging peace actually is harder. When you're in conflict with somebody that you really love, but you're really hurt by them, or you're angry, or they're angry at you, or you just don't see eye to eye on something that's very important to you and important to them, it's hard to go by the principles that I just outlined, restraining your most dysfunctional responses, really focusing on your own personal responsibility to make the situation better if at all possible, or leave each other in peace if you can't. These things take courage, they take strength, they take self-control. So they're not easy. So how do you do it? What I say is you try. You try and you try again. And most of us lose it. I can, if anybody out there is listening who's in an intimate relationship with their husband or their children or somebody they work closely with, that
You
you can
lose
get
it.
triggered. You can get really hurt. You can get really angry. You can really disagree. And it takes a lot of self-control to come back to the table. Maybe I am really blaming of you, or I really don't see your point of view and I'm not open to it. Can I catch that? Can I be responsible for that? Can I lower my voice? Can I look at you in some way? I know that, like, my husband and I get into it periodically and we love each other deeply. And we know we're going to come back to love in the end, no matter what happens. We know that. And that's the safe container around conflict for us.
I love that. I
Um,
love that.
but sometimes, you know, we just have to take a deep breath and stop ourselves and lower our voice and say, okay, I interrupted you. What did you want to say? And really actually just give the other person what we want them to give us, which is respect, which is an open mind, which is, polite or respectful behavior, and a willingness to work it out. Um, and the rewards are so great. And for anybody out there listening, that if you have people in your life that you can actually work out conflict with, it is like a miracle. It deepens love. Like sometimes my husband and I will get into it over something and we end up laughing at ourselves. It's
Yes.
like, are we kidding? Like we got into a fight about that?
Right, right.
Because it's not really about that. It's about
No.
wounds. It's about, where did I feel like I didn't have a voice? Where did he feel like he was over controlled? It's always about something deeper. And so
Yeah.
when you foster that kind of deep listening when there's conflict, even if you have to have, some upset first, when you come back to the table and you listen deeply to each other, the love grows. And that's what I wish for our country. That's what I wish for humanity. That's what I wish for the world. Instead of this investment in, I'm going to silence you, I'm going to beat you, I'm going to shame you, I'm going to jail you, I'm going to shoot on you, I'm going to, convince the world that you're just a bad, evil person, and then it doesn't matter what I do, because that's actually what abusers do.
That's
That's
right.
what abusers do in individual families. They feel totally entitled to act out on people with no remorse for the consequences to them. And first of all, that just causes enormous suffering. And that by itself, I would hope, could be a motivation for change, but it also perpetuates violence.
Yep. Yep. Oh my gosh. Phyllis Leavitt, the author of America in Therapy. Get the book. Share this podcast with your friends and neighbors and people that you know. This conversation has been so inspiring to me, because we do need to get in a place. One of my visions is that there would be no more isms, And
Love
what I
that.
realized, yeah, don't you love that? That's my
Love
vision.
that.
No more isms. And what I realized, though, Phyllis, is everything that you have said, we would have no isms if
That's right.
we're living into this wonderful new paradigm of just loving. And that I want to also say, and again, I said that was my last question, but now I have another one, um, is that I have found that I can love people that I don't necessarily like.
Yeah, I think
That,
that's right.
is
I,
that,
and I say that, I say it in my own words, which are a little different, but
yeah,
it's like, how do we want to be with the people we love and the people we don't love? Because it's the same. It's who do I want to be? Not my treating you well is dependent on who I judge you to be.
yes.
It's very different, very, very different. And I love that because we have a culture that is actually fostering the idea that you're entitled to act out on somebody if you don't like them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Regardless of their role, even in your life. I just think that's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just want to say quickly about my
Oh,
book
please,
for
please.
your
Yeah.
audience. I just want to say that the book is really written for the layman. It's not an academic book. You don't have to know anything about psychology to understand what I'm talking about. I talk a little bit about my own personal experience in the book. I talk a lot about sort of disguised client case studies. So there's lots of stories that illustrate the points that I'm making. And then there's some professional observation, but I've really written it in a way that anybody can understand what I'm talking about. So don't feel like this is, oh my God, this is a psychology book. I'm not, I won't get it. You will get it. And the other thing I just want to say really quickly is that I would love it if you would go to my website, which is my name, www.phyllisleavitt.com. And just to get more information about me and the book, but also because if you sign in to get my newsletter or contact me or whatever, you will receive a free PDF, which is an outline of the chapter that I'm talking about the principles of repairing relationship. And I made a little course, which is the PDF, so that you can take those principles and apply them to your own life. And if you get it, please share it with other people. It's not copyrighted. I just want it to be out in the world. I'm also in the process of just finishing a quiz, which you can also find on the homepage of my website, to just sort of look at what your conflict type is.
Oh,
So I mentioned it earlier. Are you more combative? Are you passive aggressive? Are you avoidant? Are you submissive? Or are you someone who's learned some skills with conflict and you have a more mediating approach? So it's a fun quiz, and it also has a PDF attached to it where you can look at all the conflict types, because I know that I actually tend at this point in my life, when I was young, I was avoidant and submissive. I
mhm.
probably swung in the other direction. I can be a little more combative. Um, and I try to mediate that myself. But it's sort of like the pendulum swung in the other
Right.
direction. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is because most of us have all of them with different people in different circumstances. You
Right.
might be really combative with your child and really submissive with your boss.
Right.
If you do that conflict quiz, you can see them all and read about them all and get a real deep sense of how they all manifest. And then the other PDF that I first mentioned is really, what do you do that changes all that?
Oh my gosh, I'm on her website right now. So please go. I see the quiz. I see all of it. You can join the community. I don't think I ever have. So I'm going to hit join the community button.
Yay.
And I'm going to put my name in here right now. Friends, join me in doing so. And then put your email in. I'm going to put my email in right now. If I can remember it, there it is. And do this because this will be a great benefit to you. And I love what you can do is have conversations. This is, that's the
Right.
one thing about relationships that are so amazing, whether they be friendships or in your faith-based communities or the community centers that you go to. You can have conversations with people at the airport. I mean, how many times have people sat next to me when I've wanted to be alone? And I have this thing that people talk to me, and then I'm like excited that I had that conversation with that person, a total stranger, not revealing things that I feel unsafe, but just being people under the same circumstance, a late flight or going home to a loved one. So be in this world, but get America in Therapy. Go to Phyllis Leavitt's website. I just saw the PDF and all of that, ways to reach her. If you would like her to be a keynote speaker or anything in any event that you're having, she does those things as well. I'm just really honored, Phyllis, that you are a friend of Life is a Sacred Journey, and more importantly, that I consider you my friend, even though we've never met, because we are on the same journey. We're on this same journey trying to figure this stuff out and to have a quality of life that enhances the world and then give to others. So, I mean, you and I meet on that yellow brick road. And so I am just so honored that you came back this morning, and everything that you said, I'm sure, I haven't been looking at the comments this morning. I've been listening to you. But I'm sure that there will be a multitude of comments from people that follow us, not just this morning, but as the podcast hits the universe, to say thank you. And again, friends, America in Therapy by Phyllis Leavitt. And I really think it's a great book for any parent or grandparent, as well as anybody else out there. And Phyllis, hold on a minute. I just want to say goodbye to everyone. Friends, I said to you last week that this is a rough season. We're going into the holiday season, which brings up a whole lot of stuff for a whole lot of people. I shared with you that I had, many of you only know of the two children that I speak about and that are around me living, but I also had another child, an older child, that passed away around the holiday season. And so the holiday season is a mixed bag for me. But I love it, and I enjoy it, but I also remember something that I've lost. And many of you are out there remembering losses right at this moment going into the holiday season. So I think America in Therapy will help you going to the website to do some of those conversational things, pulling the PDF, but more importantly, all of that. It's always putting it all together. It's a formula. Be compassionate with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Love yourself. Be compassionate with yourself. Don't be afraid to look in the mirror and say, whoa, I look good today. Or, you know what? Ooh, I need a little bit more lipstick. Or, ooh, wait a minute. That red is making me pop. Give yourself those compliments. Love yourself, because if you're depending on someone else to do it, yeah, that's great and that's wonderful. But most of your time you spend by yourself. And so you've got to be compassionate with yourself. And you know what? We'll get through this because we have people like Phyllis out there that are helping us to learn and to ask those incredible questions. It's not about being right and it's not about being wrong, as Phyllis said. It's not about trying to convince somebody that you matter. You matter because you are a breathing, walking, living human being. And if you're someone out there right now that is feeling like suicide, I just learned of a young man, 15 years old, who was bullied in San Jose because he was unsheltered. And he was going to school and trying to do the best he could. And children bullied him to the point that he committed suicide. That's why America in Therapy is a book for parents, because those other children did not understand what they were doing to this human being just because they had the honor of living in a home and having nice and fancy clothes, and they victimized this child to the point that he took his life. 15. So friends, America has to be in therapy in order for those things to stop happening. They're happening too much. But if you're a young person out there and somebody is bullying you up against the wall and you don't know what to do, call the 988 hotline. It's the suicide mental health prevention hotline. There will be somebody on the other line. They can't come and make those bullies disappear, but what they can do is give you a little bit of hope and help you to live a minute, a second, a day, an hour, a month, a year longer. That bullying will stop one day, and you have to live long enough for it to happen. And to his father, who I listened to on YouTube, and I'm actually going to get him on here so he can talk about bullying. But I want you to understand, Dad, you are loved, and we as a community, Phyllis and I and other people in the world, we send you our love for the loss of your son in such a tragic, tragic way. 988, there's somebody on the other line waiting to talk to you and guide you through. So folks, get out there in the sun today. It's cold here in California, Northern California. It was 42 degrees, Phyllis. I moved from New York to California, and I don't know what happened. But go out and get in the sun, even if it's raining. I thought about this yesterday. I thought about buying my granddaughter some rubber boots so that we could go outside and jump in puddles, get outside into the earth and feel it. Feel it. Let it heal you and resonate through your soul. And hug a tree, as I always say, pet a cat, pet a dog, or whatever animal you have, because you might have a different kind of animal. But more importantly, wrap your arms around yourself and hug yourself. I want to thank you, Phyllis Leavitt, for coming to Life is a Sacred Journey. And I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your Friday morning for just coming and learning new things and being a part of this incredible community. Don't forget to hit the share button. Don't forget to tell somebody. Don't forget to write in the comments, all that good stuff. And have a wonderful day. Be good to yourself. Be good to yourself. Peace.